everyone. My name is Mary, and I teach people how to make traditional leather work and then sell their traditional leather work. And today I'm talking to you about product photography on a budget. So no fancy equipment, just a couple of really simple tips and things that you can do to really improve your product photography when it comes to selling your leather work online, which is really an important thing. If you're watching, just want to make sure you can hear me. Sometimes Facebook Live gets a little weird. So why is it so important to have really good photos? Well, it's important because it's kind of like your customer's first impression of you and your goods. You know, they're scrolling through the Etsy feed and they're looking at tons of other products. If they see crappy photos, they're going to keep scrolling right on by. So if you have really great product photography, you are just increasing your chances that someone is going to stop on your listing and say, "Oh, I really like that. I want that." That's what we want, right? We want to sort of convert the watchers and the browsers into paying customers, and that really starts with product photography. And I learned this the hard way. I've been selling my work online for a really long time, and I used to try and shoot my products at my studio table, sort of in a dim room, but I had these like overhead lights. But every time I would shoot, a new product or try and go and shoot something to put up on Etsy, I would have these photos that were blurry, or they kind of had a yellowish tone to them. Sometimes it was a blue tone to them, depending on what light bulb I had in my overhead lights. And it wasn't pretty. It never really came out to be as good as I wanted. So I finally just started really researching and trying to figure out, and also new technology has come out where your smartphone has amazing camera right now, whereas it didn't back in 2008. So I think I was still on a BlackBerry in 2008. So that's where I was, and then what happened was I started figuring out that, like, okay, there's just a couple of things that you can do. They're really simple. They're basically free. And it will drastically improve your photos and increase your sales. Because I do think that the number one reason why my Etsy sales were so low when I first started was my poor photos. Nobody wanted to buy my stuff, no matter how cool it was, because I had blurry and dimly lit photos. So let's get started. So there's three really simple things I'm going to talk to you about. So the first one is shoot in natural light. So right now we're in my sort of makeshift studio here. I just have a small table, and then I have these sliding glass doors right here to my right. And I'm in New York City, so it's really nice that I have this big giant window here, but I'm also surrounded by skyscrapers all around me. So the light kind of is diffused during the day, and there's only certain parts of the day where I can really get a really good shot. But right now the sun is pretty good, and I'm going to use this as my natural light source. Now, if you don't have a sliding glass door, that's fine. You probably have a window in your apartment or your house. You can just push a table up against the window, and I like to have the window to my right or my left and shoot this way. If you shoot directly into the sun, into the window, your object is going to be really dark. So this is what I'm going to shoot. I'm going to shoot my little flower pot planter here. And so I'm going to be shooting it this way, and the sun is coming in and hitting it this way. Now, you might live in a really sad situation where you have no windows in your home, but that's okay. You can still shoot in the natural sunlight. Sometimes I go to Central Park to shoot my photos. And it's great. I just make a day of it. I bring what I want to shoot. I bring some props. I bring a couple backdrops. I bring a blanket, and I just make a day of it. So natural light, if there's one thing you take away from this video, shoot in natural light. It's really always going to give you the best results. Now, if you want to take it one step further, there's also optimal times of the day where you're getting really good sunlight. You basically want to avoid when the sun is really high and right above you, because it's going to cast shadows onto your subject, onto whatever it is that you're shooting. So what I like to do is to shoot in the morning as the sun is reaching the highest peak. You know, not like right at sunrise, because that's still going to be too dark, but as it's going up to before noon, basically, and then also at the later times of day, like afternoon till about right now, where the sun is starting to go down. Those for me have given me the best sort of the light for my product shots. So that's just one way you can take it one step further. Okay, so natural light. Step 2 is use a backdrop. I see a lot of people on Etsy who don't use a white backdrop, and I feel like their shot kind of, it's either distracting because there's too many other things. You know, they'll take a picture of it, something like this, where it's on a table and there's, you know, bells over here and other things on the table, and it can be really distracting. I like to use a white seamless or just a piece of poster board. That's probably going to be the easiest way for you to create a backdrop. And what I do is I'll just tape it just like this. Tape the top. Love my Hawaiian print duct tape here. And then make sure there's a nice bend. Don't crease it, but just bend it. You can tape the bottom. And there you go. Now you have a really great seamless, basically, where there's no crease back here. And it just looks like your product is sort of floating once you take a picture. You can also do this using seamless paper. You can get a roll of paper from a photography store that usually professional photographers will put up on a roll, and they roll it down. I have one right up here on my shelf that if I'm taking long shots or photographing something that's really big, like one of my leather bags or something, I'll use that. But it's the same sort of thing. Just make sure you have a nice curve to the piece of paper, and that it's white. I personally think that the white backdrop is a must for your product photography. You can, of course, get creative and do the lifestyle shots as well, but I think you should also have the product photography with the white background. It just really pops off the page. It looks really clean, and it just really is not distracting. It really shows off what it is that you are showcasing, your work. So that is, hang on, let me look at my notes here. Oh, if it is sort of part of your branding to have sort of a moodier look, obviously go with that, and you can use a darker backdrop. I don't recommend it though if it's not really part of your branding. I've seen some really great product photography, people who shoot in black and white, or they just shoot really moody, sort of a lot of grays and blacks and navies, and it's really beautiful. But if that's not really your branding style, then I would stick with the white backdrop. Okay, so, and then my third tip is to use a tripod. So when you use a tripod, you might be thinking, why do I need to use a tripod? I'm not, you know, doing any sort of timer pictures or anything like that. But whenever you're holding your camera in your hand, even if you have super steady hands, just even breathing, when you're holding your camera, you're shaking it a little bit. You know, you just can't help it, like you're moving. And that creates a blurred image. So I recommend just getting a tripod. I got this on Amazon for about 20 bucks, super inexpensive. Most of the tripods now come with a little attachment at the top as well that you can put your iPhone into. So whenever you're using the tripod, I just set it up. And another thing you can do to kind of take it to the next level, you can also set the timer on your camera phone to 3 seconds, and that way even you depressing the shutter button will not create the shake. You know, you press it and then 3 seconds later it'll take the picture. So I do that with my photos, and it really dramatically decreases the amount of blur because you're not even touching it. One other thing I was going to say, what was it? Oh, I forgot. So those are my, another reason why you want to use a tripod is because if you're holding it, you take a picture and you might be like, that looks really good, you know, but you're also looking at it on this small screen. So just imagine if you have a photo that you've taken, you've held it in your hand, it looks pretty good, but then when you go to upload that to your website, and you use it in a product listing photo that's going to be twice the size of that, your photo has to stretch, and each time it stretches, it gets blurrier and blurrier. So if you're starting out with a blurry photo, it's going to be even more blurry. So the more you can kind of cut down on taking the initial blurry photo, the better chances you're going to have of getting a good photo to use in a larger space. You know, also if you want to use something on your homepage of your website and it takes up the whole page of the website, so imagine that being stretched across a desktop computer or a laptop computer. You know, it has to be pretty crisp in order to do that and it not look blurry. So those are my tips, and I'm going to post the picture that I'm taking here with my phone, just so you can see how good it can be. One other thing that I did want to mention is always make sure your lens in the back, you wipe that off with like your t-shirt or something. So many times we have our phones in our hands so much of the time that can get really smudged, and that can really make your pictures look really bad and totally screw up an entire photo shoot. I've done that before, all because I had a smudged lens. One last thing that I just kind of wanted to mention as well is when you're taking a picture with your phone, you kind of can put your finger right where you're focusing, hold it down for 3 seconds, and then it locks the exposure, the focus, so that your camera isn't changing. It's not changing as the light is changing, and it's holding steady where it is. And then once you do that, you can kind of pull up, and it will bump up the exposure so you can create a brighter photo, or if it's too bright, you can kind of bring it down and it'll darken it a little bit. So it's pretty cool. I'm not sure, I would imagine the other phones have that as well. I'm an iPhone person, so I don't know anything about Samsung or anything like that, but I would imagine you have those same sort of features with your camera phone. So in a nutshell, use natural light whenever possible. Always use natural light, or just don't really bother unless you're a professional photographer and you know what you're doing with indoor lighting. Use a white backdrop, a seamless backdrop, so you have a really distraction-free sort of photo, and use a tripod to eliminate blurry photos, eliminate that shake that happens when you're hand holding your photo. Make sure your lens is wiped clean and doesn't have any fingerprints on it, and then use the little AF lock on your iPhone to adjust the exposure and bump up that brightness or bring it down a little bit. If you implement these 3 things in your photography, you will dramatically increase the appearance of your photos in a really good way, and you will increase your sales. So great product photography is a big piece of the puzzle, but there's also a lot more that goes hand in hand with selling your leather goods, like your marketing and your promotions and just how you're going to get your products out to the right audience and the people who want to buy it. So I've created a checklist over at Lucrative Leather Craft. You can grab that, and it takes you through all the steps that I go through whenever I'm designing and creating a new product that I want to launch. So it's pre-launch, launch, and then post-launch. I have that checklist. It's pretty awesome. I use it still, so I don't forget any of my steps. So go over there and download that. And in the comments, if you have any questions or if you have any tips for how you get really great product photography, I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much to Johan for letting me kind of pop in and do this live video. I hope you guys got something out of it and you learned something today. And I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much. Bye.